Hello and welcome back to another episode of Spincast. Today we're diving back into the world of collegiate esports. Joining me on the show today is Matt Fisher. He is the director and head coach of esports at Russell Sage College. So without further ado, Matt, go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about your background in esports and kind of how your path took you to becoming the director and head coach at Russell Sage.
Yeah, all right. So thanks for having me. My name's, like I said, Matt Fisher. I am just getting started here. Just took the job back in September. Prior to that, I was a graduate student at the University of South Carolina, which is where I got into esports. I was getting my master's in sports management administration and
Mm-hmm.
ended up joining the Overwatch team at the
Mm-hmm.
school. Had a lot of fun doing that. Got really involved. They did a great job, even though they're a club program, so still kind of getting towards that varsity status. But they did a great job making everyone feel included, inclusive, pick up games, all sorts of fun stuff like that. I kind of intended to get more into the typical athletic side when I was getting that degree. However, esports kind of just came onto me, and it's such
Sure.
an awesome opportunity. It reminds me so much of traditional sports, which is what my background is. And it's
Mm-hmm.
that same opportunity to compete at the highest level, go out, try and win games, and play with people who are passionate about the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Awesome. Great background there. Obviously, good experience there as well. But kind of looking towards that, the program in particular at Russell Sage, tell me what games y'all compete in, what competitions and leagues you play in as well, to really give those high school students watching a good picture of the program.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's a little bit more unique, we have two things that I think make us unique from a lot
Mhm.
of other esports programs. And the first one is that we're actually historically we were a women's college for a
Mhm.
long time. So we actually have about 70% women population at our school, which definitely is not typically what you see on the esports scene. Typically, it's a much more male dominated field. However, one thing we're trying to do is reach out and try and get more women to join our team. We had a couple current students who are women at the school, and they've already joined the team. We're really excited about that, and we definitely like
Yeah.
to be a little more diverse in what our teams look like.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is that we are in the athletics program. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I have the athletics background. I'm really passionate about sports. Grew up with basketball, soccer, so definitely wanted to be in the athletics field. So this was such a great opportunity to combine two of my favorite things, video games with the sports field. So we get treated just like a sports team, access to the athletic trainers. We're trying to follow those NCAA rules, like 114 days of practice for each semester. The sports social medias promote our team, which is really cool. We get all the Sage athletics gear, which is awesome, access to the gyms. Really cool experience, I think, that just sets us apart a little bit from the typical club scene or off on its own esports scene where the school's like, yeah, we have an esports team, but they're an esports team.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I'm really happy the athletic director recognized this as an opportunity to grow her sports program, and I think that's awesome. As far as the
Absolutely.
sports we're playing, as far as the games we're playing, Rocket League, Overwatch, League of Legends, and we're definitely going to look to expand. We're keeping an eye on games like Valorant and seeing how they do. Would love to get involved in something like that. A lot of players are obviously itching to compete in that at the college level as well.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we went with those three games, I think League of Legends to me has just stood the test of time. That is like
Oh, for sure.
the king of video games, in my opinion. It has been through everything. It's not going away. I don't think you should have an esports program and not have League of Legends. It's just such an awesome game that brings the entire world together, really. Rocket League, it's a little bit more, I would say, of a casual esport while still maintaining that competitiveness. It's also just a really easy one for people who have not been involved in esports to follow because it's soccer, which is
Mm-hmm.
same principles they're used to, carries over well. And then just being an Overwatch guy, had to bring Overwatch in, the
Absolutely.
game I'm most passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the three biggest esports that I've seen kind of at that amateur level of high school and college, right? And even professionally. League of Legends obviously being the biggest esport in the world. Overwatch used to be right there, kind of dropped off just a little bit due to some
Yep.
decisions that we know that Blizzard made. And Rocket League, I personally love Rocket League. Not the best by any means, but I love playing it. And what I found is it's so easy for parents to relate, right? So when their kids playing collegiately or at the high school level or the amateur level, it's really easy for anybody, not even just parents, but for anybody to sit down and be like, hey, I get what's happening, right? Because if you don't know what's happening in League of Legends, you're lost. You're
Yeah.
like, I don't know what this is. Are they even, is this English? I'm not really sure. Is the casters even talking? I don't know. So obviously a great game, just very, very complex. So Rocket League, like I said, I love it personally because of that reason. It's so easy for A, to get involved in, and B, to watch as well. So everyone can kind of have their own play. But moving on to my next question, what competitions do y'all play in? What leagues or what tournament providers do you play underneath for these games?
So we're actually going to be competing in the NACE next year. So that's, pretty big college league.
Awesome.
Really excited about that. And to me, one of the cooler things about collegiate esports when compared to everything else is that you get to play against everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, whether you're community college all the way up to Alabama, Ohio State, you're playing same field, same games, same competition. So I always think that's definitely a really cool aspect of esports that you don't get from traditional sports. And then just looking around to try and find other competitions to keep people fresh, keep random. I know my old team, South Carolina, just played in the Make-A-Wish tournament down in Georgia, and they had a great time doing that. It was fantastic production. I enjoyed watching that.
Awesome.
So looking for tournaments like that to raise money or compete for scholarships anytime it's available.
Awesome. Good to hear. Good to hear. Now take me through a typical practice day that y'all go through. So a lot of high school students always ask me, hey, what does college esports looks like, right? Because it's not near as visible as football, right? Everyone kind of knows what football is like at the collegiate level, but talk to me what you do specifically inside your program for a typical practice day.
Yeah, so what a practice looks like is, you've got probably a 2 or 3 hour window where you're going to be running the actual practice, and you love to see players who show up early and get started warming up right away. Ideally, by the time you get to that practice window, you've already gotten some aim trainer in, you've already run a couple games of either quick play, comp, whatever you're doing to get ready for that. And then it depends on the time of year, but let's say during the middle of the season, earlier in the week, it might start off with a VOD review of what we looked like in our last game. Love to go through what we did well, what we could work on, listen to kind of our comms during the game, or talk about what our players were saying while they were in game, so that we can look at how we can improve there or what kind of shot calling we need to work on. Later in the week, you might look at what your upcoming opponent did. One of the best things about esports is that everyone posts VODs on Twitch of their games. So you can usually see, at a minimum, you can see the game from their perspective that they just played. Or even better, sometimes you can hear their comms and you know exactly their thought process, what they're doing on each map or each round, exactly what they're trying to do. So you can use that to scout really effectively. So taking a look at what they're trying to do and take advantage of any gaps in what they have, or being aware of, hey, this team's got, a really great goalie, like we need to be getting them out of position as much as possible. Or in Overwatch, they've got a great sniper, we need to be prepared for that. Just, you can prepare so much better. So a little bit of that towards later in the week. And then other than that, focusing a lot on scrims and getting call outs done. I'm really, really big whenever I'm talking to recruits, whenever I'm talking to players, communication is so critical. And I think outsiders who don't watch as much esports don't realize how vital it is that everyone is on the same page, clicking, just like you would want everyone on the same page on a football play. You don't want someone doing something you don't want someone run blocking when they should be pass blocking. You don't want someone running a quick slam when they should run. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize how important that communication is in Overwatch. So that's something we focus a lot on during practice.
Absolutely. Totally agree on all of those points. And I think, esports really enhances those communication skills on top of everything too, right? It's a really valuable skill, obviously, in the workforce and in life in general, right? Being able to communicate effectively helps your life basically everywhere, right? Your personal relationships, your work life, college, in-game, whatever game that is, whether it's esports or traditional sports, so on and so forth. So that's awesome that you focus on that skill set, both in the games. I think it also translates in a lot of other places as well. But kind of moving to my next question, I always like to make this comparison. Looking at traditional sports like football, basketball, baseball, what things do you think they do well that esports might not do as well that we could kind of, copy and paste sort of reason, right? Because I think, they're both obviously have their similarities and differences, but there's a lot of things that traditional sports does super good that esports, I think, lacks in, that we could kind of take from that way. So is anything pop into your mind on that note that could really enhance just the overall industry of esports?
The first thing that always comes to my mind, at least when asked about this, is the promotion of esports. I think especially college esports does not do as great of a job as it could of promoting its competitions, getting them into the viewers' eyes as much as possible. And where that tends to hurt a lot is with high schoolers. They don't even know college esports is really a thing until they're already on campus. So they don't know what the esports program looks like at that school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously you have the players who are looking for those esports opportunities, but it's such a small pool when compared to the amount of players that would be interested in esports if they knew college esports was such a big opportunity scholarship wise. And I think that just comes from that lack of viewer. I mean, and part of it is definitely the complications of a game like League of Legends. I mean, if you're just watching that game as a casual viewer, it's so tough to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
There's so much happening all at once. You can't see everything all at once usually. So you're like, oh, what's going on over there? What's going on in top lane? Like you don't know what's happening. So when you're a newer viewer, that can be overwhelming, confusing, all of that. But I mean, the way I look at it is football is a super confusing game as well. If you don't follow football, you're going to have no idea what's going on. And yet they still do a great job of integrating casual viewers through great commentary, great promotion of the games, and turning it into a social aspect. I mean, football is what, 20 minutes of actual gameplay over 3 hours.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's confusing, but yet the Super Bowl is so highly watched by all these people. Half of them don't even know what's going on. How can esports kind of integrate what football does to make it such a popular sport to get more viewers in, legitimize it in the eyes of high school students, high school parents, which is always the big thing. Don't want their kids going across the country to play video games in college. I mean, if they haven't seen it, it's really hard to sell them on that as opposed to going across the country to play college football, college baseball, something like that, where they're like, oh, I've been watching this my entire life. I know it's a real thing. I know there's opportunities. So I just think that's the one area that esports really needs to focus on is bringing in more casual viewers and promoting its presence.
Totally agree. That's kind of like the last frontier in my mind of esports, right? It's obviously so big, so it's gotten so big so fast, but like you said, it hasn't quite got all those casual viewers, right? That's what makes traditional sports massive, both at the collegiate level and the professional levels, that everyone watches it, right? The Super Bowl is the most watched sporting event except for the World Cup, right? Those are the two marquee ones. So how do we get there? And I think you bring a lot of good points in that discussion, because I think League of Legends at its core is easy to explain if someone took the time to learn it, right? Same thing with football, right? I just think football has the advantage because you probably start watching it when you're like 2 with your dad, right? So there's that. I think time kind of solves that, as more kids, instead of watching football, or maybe their parents watch League of Legends or some other game and they start getting exposed to it at a little bit of an earlier age. But also on that point, you brought up the commentary. When I watch a League of Legends stream, the casters are phenomenal, right? I don't want to down the casters, but they're casting it for the esports experts, right? They're casting it for the players. So they assume that the players know a lot of these things. So then you lose the casual audience, right? Because they're going into the minutia of why a top lane battle was won by one player or the other, or one hero or the other, rather than kind of explaining the core mechanics, right? And actually at the last Worlds, what I really liked, I think it's a really great step, is that they had like a secondary stream where pros kind of were watching the game and commentating for the casual viewers, right? They were explaining very basic things that would, for the average esports person that understood League of Legends would be a little too basic, but it helped a lot. Be like, hey, I'm watching this. My friend also wants to watch, but they don't really get League of Legends. So they can turn on this stream, have the kind of the same feed, but they can be listening to something different, which I think is super, super helpful. But going on to my next question before we run out of time here is looking at collegiate esports more specifically. I know we just talked about the marketing side of things, but what's that future look like for your program, for collegiate, for your program in college esports? What games do you want to expand into? What focuses do you want to take to continue to expand and succeed in the collegiate esports world?
Yeah, so I think looking towards the future, the big thing for me is treating this, like I said, like a sports program. I think that's going to be the best way to integrate the casual viewers, honestly, at our school, is promoting us as a typical sports game. So even though like I don't understand all the intricacies of volleyball per se, I never played it. I don't get it entirely. I can still go to a volleyball game, enjoy it, see either which team is winning, which team's losing, and I understand all of that. And like I have a good time at those games. And I think promoting esports in the same vein as, hey, this is something you can come, you can watch. We have our arena. There's a viewing area. You can come in, you can check it out. It's, to me, that's kind of the direction I want to go in, is making it a viewer sport at our school, treating our student athletes like student athletes, just like they would in any other sport. So training physically, mentally, as well as in the games. So, going to the gym, getting, in peak performance. I think there's been plenty of connections showing that people are healthier are going to perform better, even in esports, even though you don't need to be in picturesque shape. Being good rest, good diet, all contributes to performing better. So kind of bringing all that together on the esports scene is definitely a priority for me. And as far as games, kind of following what ends up succeeding, what is popular. I think Super Smash Brothers is a game I'd really like to add onto the roster. I think that's another game that's stood the test of time. It's proved its worth on the esports scene. I'd like to see Nintendo maybe kind of improve on their current online scene. I think that's probably still a weaker point as compared to a lot of other esports. So I'd like to see that get a little bit better. And then games like Valorant, as they, pop up and I get calls from kids who are in 9th grade. They're like, "Are you guys going to play Valorant?" I'm like, "Well, we'll see what Valorant looks like in 4 years." I'd like to.
Yeah.
But it's kind of just seeing how does this game do? Because there's been plenty of games that have popped up and everyone's really excited about them, and then they flop, and you're like, well, do I really want to invest the time and capital from an esports perspective into prepping for this game if it's not going to be great? So just following which sports really do handle the rigor of becoming a popular game.
Totally agree. I think that's such an important point, because it's like this value that you have, or this value judgment that you have to place on games of like, what do you invest your time and resources into now that will pay off in the future, right? And I honestly, I'd put, if I was a betting person, I'd put money on Valorant, right? Riot Games is phenomenal. They're super successful with League of Legends, but still new. Had a great, successful first, 9 or 10 months ish, maybe a little bit less. But I think as we get into, that year mark and a little bit later into the spring of 2021, we'll really tell how successful Valorant will be over the next few years. But totally agree. That kind of goes to my last question of more of a fun question. Looking, let's say, 5 or 6 years down the road, what do you see becoming the world's esport, as in from a game perspective, right? So I would say, soccer is the world's sport, right? That's the most popular sport across the world. What game do you see that kind of taking that title for esports?
Oh man, as much as I'd love to say Overwatch is going to claim the throne there, I think I love Overwatch 2 and what it's going to bring to the table from a campaign perspective. And I do trust Blizzard. I think they tend to do a really nice job with their games as long as they continue to invest in them, which they're clearly doing for Overwatch. I just don't see how anything could pass League of Legends. That game, it's already so popular over in Asia. And in North America, I feel like every year it continues to grow somehow, even though it's such an old game. There's not a ton of new content that comes to it every year, and yet it still just continues to blossom. And I just don't see a scenario where League of Legends isn't still on top of the esports scene in a couple of years. As much as I like FPS, I prefer FPS games. But I just don't see Call of Duty or Valorant, Blizzard, any of those games, or Overwatch. I don't see any of them surpassing what League of Legends has already accomplished.
Yeah, gotta agree with you on that one. League of Legends has that crown now, and it's gonna be hard to dethrone because of all that momentum, right? When you look at the numbers of how many people watch Worlds or or even just LCS and LEC, it's like comparable to any other of the top 5 titles, like Overwatch or Rocket League. It's just by far, it's like literally like you add a 0 or 2 into some of those competitions. Like adding a 0 is already incredibly impressive, but 2 zeros, it's like, whoa, I'm doing it by 100, literally. So that's absolutely incredible. But that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for sitting down with me on Spincast today, Matt. Real quick, if you will, go ahead, plug yourself, plug your program. Tell us where we can find out more information on a website, on a Twitter page, any other social media platforms that y'all might use.
So like I said, I'm Matt Fisher, esports director at Russell Sage College. We have 2 campuses in Albany and Troy, New York. Definitely, if you're looking to move to the New York area, great place. Instagram, Sage Gator Esports is our @ You can definitely follow us there. And otherwise, just go into the Sage Athletics page. You can find esports right there.
Awesome. Everyone definitely do that. Keep up to date on them. I know y'all's program is newer, but awesome to say the least, especially with that athletic support. I think that really sets up the collegiate programs for success, right? Because the more support you have, the more resources you have. Obviously, that helps really with everything, right? So once again, thank you for sitting down. To our viewers and listeners, thanks for sticking around the entire time. Stay healthy and stay happy out there. Sadly, COVID's still a thing. I want it to go away. I really, really want my lands back. I think we all want lands back. I cannot wait until we can compete at a LAN, or I can just go watch one. So totally awesome there. But ultimately, stay plugged in.